Hey, hi, hello! My name is Foxari and welcome to Gaming News Roundup, a little show idea I had where I take a look at what happened in the past week in gaming news, take all the interesting and need to know information, and cram it all into one little video. This is the first time I'm going to be doing this, so sorry if this is really rough and all that jazz, but here we go, let's just get right into it for some interesting gaming news. Our first topic is Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. This wonderful remake finally released last Thursday after fans have been clamoring for some sort of recognition or re-release of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door since, well, 2004. What makes this game so beloved is its interesting world, characters, and story. And yeah, this is not just a normal typical Mario fare, not even really a typical Mario RPG if you're familiar with those specific games. It really is its own specific style and flavor and grace that you don't really see anywhere else. Not even the original Paper Mario, which has a similar combat and identity, but this really takes it to a whole nother level, and seriously, it is wonderful. Taking a look at the Metacritic scores, it has a critic review rating of 88 and a user score of 8.1. I was always kind of confused of how Metacritic flip-flopped between those two different scales, but whatever. The general idea is that people are really liking this game, and specifically this release. The only real problem I have with this release is the frame rate. Frame rate is not everything, but it could definitely help a game feel good to play. The original was 60 frames per second, and this one is 30 frames per second. And of course that means it feels half as slow sometimes. In my own experience playing through the game, which was the prologue through the first chapter, I didn't have a problem with the frame rate for the most part. There were just some times where it felt a little weird or things felt a little too choppy. Not in a stylistic sense, but in a weird kind of, that shouldn't look like that way. But despite that, the game is still wonderful, it's still charming, it has hilarious dialogue, it is pretty much everything you would want from a fun Mario adventure. If you love turn-based RPGs with real-time elements, this is the perfect game for you. Trust me, it is so good. But that's not all. On the My Nintendo website, you can redeem a printable cover that is essentially the original Thousand-Year Door box art, GameCube logo and everything. Pretty nifty trinket for those who own a physical copy of this game and want to represent its origins. And here's a real interesting discovery still relating to Paper Mario. Twitter user Ribshuck found in the Thousand-Year Door's code that the game might have the capability to output in 4K. He clarifies that this doesn't outright confirm any new information on the Switch's successor, but rather could be used for promotional screenshots or development testing. Either way, I find this super interesting since I'm personally not certain if any other first-party Switch games ever had anything similar in its code up until this point. Now let that be food for thought. Sticking to the Nintendo news track, this past week, the Big N acquired the company Shiver Entertainment. Off the bat, this is quite peculiar, since Nintendo most often prefers to work alongside partner studios rather than straight up acquiring them, but it isn't completely out of the question, since they've done it before with Next Level Games. To be honest, I had no idea what Shiver even did in the gaming landscape, so I went on their official website and it reads, Shiver is a boutique developer based in warm and sunny Miami, Florida, and part of the Embracer Group. Our small team is made up of highly talented individuals who enjoy working together and make great games. We focus on console, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, and PC development for both original IP as well as large AAA titles. Most recently, we developed Mortal Kombat 11 for the Nintendo Switch. So, it seems like Shiver specializes in porting games across different platforms, and that Nintendo wants a dedicated team to port third-party games to Switch and whatever comes after it, which I think is a pretty smart move. Third-party games are important to any platform, and while first-party games will always be the most important part of any console's identity, as well as drawing people into these companies' ecosystems, having the option to play popular games you've heard about on the console you already own or consider owning is simply a recipe for success, as long as the port itself is actually good. Next, I want to give a special mention to Mario Builder 64, which is a ROM hack that basically turns Super Mario 64 into Super Mario Maker. But, of course, in 3D within Mario 64's engine. It is insanely impressive, and I am just at awe that this exists as a ROM hack and even works on original hardware. That seriously is incredibly impressive. Mario Builder 64 is made by Rovertronic and Arthur Tilley. Both of these developers are extremely talented, and I cannot believe that this is actually real. A link to this project announcement video, which contains download information, will be in the description for anyone curious. Back to official Nintendo news, Twitter user Game Data Library announced that on Famitsu sell-through, Nintendo Switch surpasses the sales of the Nintendo DS in Japan, making the Nintendo Switch the best-selling console in the entire Japan region, which is honestly a humongous accomplishment. Now, I'm one of the believers that think that the Nintendo Switch has the full capacity to surpass the PlayStation 2 as the best-selling console of all time, and this honestly is one of the biggest milestones to accomplish, period, so who knows, maybe it'll happen. Moving on to some Sega Atlas news, credible leaker Midori has some information about Persona 6, specifically its placeholder logo. What makes Midori a very credible leaker is that they have accurately leaked several information about various different things in the gaming industry, and every single statement they've given has been extremely correct, at least according to my research. To give you an example for people who don't know Midori, they accurately leaked all the information relating to Persona 3 Reload's DLC before it was announced. I think over a month before it was announced, in fact. They explained how it'll be chopped up into 3 parts, it'll kind of be like a season pass sort of deal, and specifically the general idea of how it'll be formatted, and all of that was correct. So I have no doubt in my mind that whatever information Midori gives, as long as they're not trolling of course, is 100% accurate. And so, for whatever reason, they just dropped the Persona 6 logo, just like that. Of course, this is only a development logo. Anything in game development, or any media development for that matter, always is subject to change. I doubt this is going to be the final logo, but it's super cool to kind of have an idea of what the game's color scheme is, and what this logo might represent for its gameplay and story. But that's not the only thing we have from Midori this past week. Somebody asked on Twitter, question Miss Midori, the currently new Persona title, Persona 3 Reload, the future Persona remake titles, and the new Persona 6 are going to be in the new Nintendo system? Hope you can respond to me. Thanks for the hard work. And Midori responded, this is correct information. I don't know if Midori or any other leaker has already confirmed that these newer Persona titles were going to be coming to the next Nintendo console, but it's really cool to get confirmation now, so we can have an idea of what we can expect Nintendo's next console's first year could possibly look like. Shifting gears to Devolver Digital, and for those who don't know these people by name, they are the creators of Enter the Gungeon, Cult of the Lamb, and My Friend Pedro. They announced that they're going to be holding their own direct on June 7th. I think it's safe to assume that we're going to get more information on their game, The Plucky Squire, and maybe even a release date, since that game was announced to come out this year, and we don't have any new information since last year. But of course, that is yet to be seen. Next up, a pretty big announcement that happened in the middle of this week was the majority of Kingdom Hearts games coming to Steam. Of course, this is a pretty big deal since the Kingdom Hearts games are not only just popular, but in terms of PC gaming, they were stuck on Epic Game Store for, I believe, 3 years now or longer. However, a very interesting part about this is that this does not include the rhythm game Melody of Memory, which is canon, well, to some extent, if you care about the story of Kingdom Hearts or introducing your friends to the story of Kingdom Hearts. I'm sure the game will eventually make its way to Steam. I just think it's really weird how that's not going to be a part of this big drop. But hey, I'm really excited to see these games finally come to Steam after honestly waiting for so long. This beloved franchise drops on Steam on June 13th. Next up, we have a little bit of an update for the Legend of Zelda movie given to us by Deadline. This article's title is quite long and weird, so I'm not going to try to read it out loud. If you want to look more into it, the title's on screen, and I'll leave a link to the description of this article. Just know that this is not Zelda focused at all. It's only mentioned a couple times throughout this article. And the most notable mention is here. Deadline asks, your director, Wes Ball, found a way to revive yet again the Planet of the Apes franchise. The last trilogy by Matt Reeves was hard to top. Going in, I thought, do we need more of this? Turns out the answer was yes, because of the unusual entry point. Still, based on what you're saying about movies needing to be great, people have looked at giant video games as IP, and often it has not worked. How does Zelda adhere to what you've said about freshness? Rothman, who was directly tied to the development of this movie, stated, because the movie is being developed and made in the closest possible collaboration with Nintendo video game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, he's a true genius in that world, and it's really his strong vision that is motivating it. He created it and understands it thoroughly. You only to look at the results of Super Mario Bros. To see. Super Mario Bros. Brothers in this context obviously being the Super Mario Brothers movie from Illumination, which Miyamoto was also involved in heavily. This is a pretty good sign that Miyamoto, and in general Sony and anyone else involved, really does care about making this movie the best it could be. Now, if it'll turn out great, or even good at all, that is to be determined, but I have a bit of faith that it will turn out alright at the very end. I guess we'll just see. And for the last piece of news for this video is actually another Midori leak. Midori says, and I quote, "There is a project at Nintendo in development with the codename SP Red. Red is a Mario codename. There was a project at Nintendo with the title Silver Star. Super Mario Odyssey is Red Star." Now, we have a little bit to unpack here, but luckily somebody already asked one of the questions that was on my mind. Twitter user Ash asked Midori, was, as in it was in development at one point, but is no longer being developed? Is there a known period of what time when it was being developed? Of course, referring to Silver Star. And Midori responds, "It means it is unknown what is happening with this project." This is of course super interesting as a big Nintendo fan myself, as we don't really get to hear about any cancelled Nintendo project more often than not ever. But right now, since we don't know anything concrete besides a codename, let's just leave it at that, and maybe we could figure it out in the future. Backtracking a little bit here for this Mario codename that Midori dropped, Twitter user Mondo Mega in the reply of Midori's initial tweet said, "That's a mainline Mario game. From 3D Land onwards, they have all had codenames that included Red." And then they have a list here. For example, Red Pepper was Super Mario 3D Land, Red Pro was New Super Mario Bros. U, so on and so forth. Off the bat, a thing to note about Nintendo codenames is that if there's no dash and other letter or symbol or anything of the like, that means that it is not a port, since, let's take for example Red Pro-S is Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, as opposed to the original Red Pro, which is just the original release of New Super Mario Bros. So we know that whatever this Mario project is, which I have my money on a new 3D Mario, since it's been a while since we got a wholly original one, is going to be SP Red, which will most likely be a launch title for the next Nintendo console, since I heavily doubt that they're going to have another brand new 3D Zelda game to launch with the next system, since it most likely comes out next year. Either way you slice it, this is a very exciting time to be a fan of video games, and especially Nintendo, but across the board there are very interesting things happening. Thank you so much for watching this video, I greatly appreciate it. If you have any criticisms or anything you want to say, I genuinely want to hear it in the comments below. This is not me engagement farming at all, I genuinely want to know if there's anything I could do to improve this if I want to do this again. Have a wonderful day and take care!